Hi, this is Tonja from Stamping with Tonja. What I have to show you today are different boxes that you can make with the envelope punch board. See, here's an example of one of them. I know there are already several videos out there that show you this, but here's my take on the easiest method to make your boxes with. First of all, you want to set up your envelope punch board so that the punch is straight across from you, and you always want to start with a square piece of either cardstock or designer series paper. This is the designer series paper from the Epic This and That designer paper. What I will do first, and what you want to do first, is to line up your paper with one of the inch marks along the top. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and line it up at the 2-inch mark, and I'll take the scoring tool, which also comes with the envelope punch board, and I will score from this right here, this is where the line is underneath your paper, out to the end of the board, and then I'm going to punch. Then I will turn the paper to the next corner, around to the next corner, line it up with a 2-inch mark, punch, and then again score as far as it will go off the board. Do the third corner the same way, line it up with a 2, punch, and then draw your line out to the end of the board, and then do the fourth corner the same way. Punch at the 2-inch mark, and then score your paper. Then you're going to flip your paper over and do the exact same thing again. Line up at the 2-inch mark, punch, and score your paper. Turn around to the next corner, line up at the 2-inch mark, punch, and score. And you'll notice that your score marks will line up with the score marks that you made previously. So that's why it's okay if when you first do it, your score marks actually go off the edge of the paper. Now I'm going to flip and do my last corner, punch, and score at the 2-inch mark. Now I will take my flaps. These are going to be the top of your box. Each corner will be a top flap of your box, and I will take this score mark right here along my punch board, line the flap up, and make a score mark at the bottom of that flap, and that'll just make it easier to close, to score. Now I'm flipping to the second corner, lining that flap up with my score mark, scoring, and then folding over. And then I'll do that on the remaining 2 corners. And now for the last one. Then I will fold my paper at all of the score lines. This is just going to make it a lot easier to put together, and as you'll see in a minute, it'll make it easier to make one more score line. Now you'll see you have your flaps. You have those in each corner, and then you have where it was punched. You have the little notches where it was punched, and this little triangle right here, we will be folding that together in order to, see how I just sort of folded that together, in order to make the side of our boxes. Now to make that just a little bit easier, what I intend to do is to place, if you can, when you run your finger over this, you can feel the score indentation for that line. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put the corner of this right here, of this little triangle, in that score line. And then I'm just going to make a little score mark. So it will be easier when I go to fold that in. That just makes us a little trick to make it a little easier to put that together. So if this is in the little ridge of the score line, then when you put your paper across it, you should be able to feel it. And then making sure this is fairly, you're just going to have to eyeball that that's the center. And again, it'll just fold up so much more easily when you go to put your box together. Now, you can adhere the boxes several different ways. You can use the green glue, which is what I call this. It's the Tombow liquid adhesive. It's really strong. It's really great. I would suggest you use either this or sticky strip if you're using cardstock. Since the Designer Series paper is a little lighter, you could also use those items, but you can also use glue dots, or you could use snail adhesive to keep them together. Now, I'm going to use the snail in this instance because it'll go together a lot more quickly. Now, what I want to show you, let me set my board aside. We want to take these little triangles between the notches. The little triangles between the notches that we just scored the center. Adhesive on those so that when I fold this up, right, there we go. So when we fold those together, it'll go easily. And then you have this flap in the middle, and what you can do with that, if you can see it here, what you want to do with that flap is either use a glue dot or more of whatever adhesive you started with to keep that down. And this makes it look nice and neat whenever you're finished. Alright, so again, I'm going to put adhesive on the outside of those triangles, fold them up together, hold it for a minute or so, a couple of seconds, and then you see you have the flap on the inside, so again, I'm going to put more adhesive on that so that it stays down to the side. Then I'll move on to my next corner, and you'll see as you move around it becomes a little more difficult to adhere these together because your box is getting smaller and smaller. So I'm going to put a little more adhesive to adhere that flap down, and then more adhesive to do my last. I'm just sort of squeezing that down as I go. It was adhered before you moved on to the next step. So there's the inside of my box, and then the only thing left to do is to close your flaps and figure out how you're going to decorate this wonderful box. So again, the measurements on this one, this box, were 9 inches, and then we punched and scored at 2 inches. This box was made with a 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and it was scored at 3 inches on each corner, punched and scored at 3 inches. This is a great way to decorate it too, with a tag on top. This box was made with a 9 by 9 inch piece of designer paper and scored at 2 inches on each corner. And then this little one was made using a 6 by 6 piece of designer paper, scored at 2 inches. And here's one of these decorated up nicely. Okay, if you're interested in purchasing any of the envelope punch board, you can go to my website to do that at stampingwithtonya.com. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.